Hello folks, the name's Jack Pedler. I'm down here in the North End, around the Burlington Street, Wentworth area. You know, heart of the industrial heart of Hamilton. And here I am, I can't breathe or anything. The air is terrible down here. It's awful. But anyway, yeah, I play drums. I'm a singer-songwriter. I like to do spoken word. Everything. I like to get into everything. And the current band I'm in is a cover band called The Rockets. And we just play around town and just kind of taking it easy on that one. Because I had some health issues in 2016. So anyway, that's the scoop on that. And we'll get back to some more questions. Now, what got me into punk music? Well, I can remember, back about 1968, listen on Chum FM and hearing the MC5 and just, oh yeah, kick out the jams, motherfuckers. And I went, okay, well these guys know what they're doing. So I became a very, very intense MC5 fan. And then I heard Iggy Pop, who was I forget what's his name again? Iggy of the Stooges. Well, anyway, Iggy of the Stooges, I got into that, and that stuff scared the shit out of me. And that was around, 69, somewhere around there. And then, kind of got into Slade, about 70, 71, because of the look. Because I liked the look back then. And, and then I can remember being at a Yes concert, 1976. And they opened up with Gates of Delirium. And, after that, I just went, how the hell can you remember all that shit? So I says, there's got to be a change here. Punk music, rock and roll, and I went, okay, thank God. Thank God we got rid of all this prog stuff. And then, oh yeah, the 70s punk, later, I love the humor. To me, it was like, it was a laugh, so that's why I love that stuff. So, anyway, that's why I got into punk. Yeah, now, my main influences growing up. Well, my first love of, okay, this is so cool, was Little Nash Rambler. That tune, right? And other than that, like my dad was a guitar player. And I can remember looking in a Gibson catalog and saying to myself, what the hell is this picture doing in here? Because he was in the Gallery of Stars. The Canadian Gallery of Stars, so he was doing good, and he had he was with the music store called Pilgrims, which this is I'm about 8, so by the time I'm 10, well not really 10, I'm 9 years old. My dad comes up to me, it's 1963. My dad says to me, he says, how old are you, son? I says, well, I'm 9 years old. He says, no, you're not. I says, what do you mean? He says, you're 10. I says, no, I'm not 10. He says, do the math. What year were you born? I said, 1953. This is like January of 1963. I says, 1953. He says, what year is it now? I says, 1963. He says, you're 10 years old. You start tomorrow. I go, what? So here I am. I end up working down at the store. I says, hey, Dad, are you going to drive me down? He said, what are you kidding? He says, I'm the boss. I get there at 11 o'clock. You have to be there at 8:30. I go, what? Yeah, and you have to shovel the walk and do all the mopping and make sure the washrooms are all clean, because, people start to come in around 10 o'clock. So anyway, here I am working a music store, and I got, like, there's so many influences and everything, and it was a high-end music store, so there was always good players coming in. So, you know, at a young age, I got to see how to play and what you had to do. You know, I didn't, I just didn't come out of the blue and say, I'm going to play drums, and okay, well, how do you do that? Not being clueless and being behind the drums, that's scary. So at least when I decided to take drums, because I love drums, I can remember that the first kit just glaring and everything, and honestly, like, everything just went blank. All I could see was the kit, and everything was gone. It was just this kit of drums and this vast picture of nothing at the back. So, and I'm, hives, I can remember going to see Louis Belson, the double kicker guy, in 1965. Christ. I says, okay, well, I'm working down at the store, so I was able to, save up money, and, I made sure that by 1966 I had another bass drum. So, I was a double kicker, and, a guy named Ken Coons was my drum teacher. He was great, a fucking unbelievable drummer, unbelievable. And he says to me, okay, I'm teaching you drums, and I got to teach you how to drive. I says, what do you mean? He says, well, he says, all drummers, you drive. I'm going, well, what do you mean? Because he had a muscle car. This big Ford 390 with 4 on the floor and a tack on it. He says, okay, I'm going to show you how to use 4 on the floor. So anyway, I ended up being able to bang shifts, without using a clutch, and here I am. He's got boosters on the pedals, and I'm sitting up, and we're going on all these old highways that hadn't been open yet, but they're being made, so we sneak onto the highways, and that's how I got my speed. Learned how to speed. It was the one day, the highway going up to Ancaster. Up to, there's the McMaster down below and up on the hill. So anyway, that wasn't open, and that's where I learned to do all my my power shifting. But anyway, that's that, and yeah. So it was my dad. This guy named Ken Coons. Also, I had another teacher, Bob Wright, who was into Elvin Jones. To me, Elvin Jones is a scrambled eggs king. One of my favorite drummers ever. I listened to this cat when I was 10, and I went, oh, okay, now that's how you do it. I had rudiments and that stuff, and I says, okay, I'm just going to use rudiments in my playing and just go crazy. And that was Elvin Jones, and and I knew I was onto something when I was doing that. And my old man came down the basement. He says, who are you trying to be, Elvin Jones? I looked at him. I says, well, thank you. And I'd go over to other guys' places, who had drum kits, and I'd start doing Elvin Jones, and guaranteed, within 2 minutes, there was a parent coming down the basement telling me to stop. I got, oh yeah, okay. So anyway, those are my main influences when I was growing up. Okay, now my first concert, I think it was maybe about 1967. And my aunt at the time was going out with this cat named Jack Barr, who had the CHIQ morning show. And that radio station was given about 10 or 12 comp tickets to the New Animals show that was at the Forum, at the Hamilton Forum at the time, and he ended up giving me these tickets. This was sometime in the summer of '67. He ended up giving me these tickets. I got about 12 tickets to the Animals show. So anyway, me and my buddy, Fat Cam, shoot down to the Forum. Okay, we're going to catch the new Animals here, catch a show. Yeah, this is great, And then there's only these kids trying to get in. A couple of kids trying to get in and shit. So anyway, maybe I shouldn't have done this. But I says, hey, you want into the show? The one kid, yeah. I says, okay, here's a ticket, give me $2 for complimentary tickets, right? So he gives me $2. Next thing, I'm surrounded. And I've got these 12 comp tickets gone within minutes, and I've got $25. Now, $25 or $24. $24 in 1967 is like a half a week's pay. So I'm, okay, this is like, and all of a sudden, I'm on the arm. So I look over, it's the heat. What's going on here? What are you doing? I'm telling you, some ticket. Okay. So I got hauled into the office. Here I am surrounded by heat, and the manager of the Forum. Okay, what are they giving me shit and that stuff? I'm looking around at these cats, and I'm going, who gives a shit? I'm saying this to myself, who gives a shit? I just want to get in there, see the animals, and eat as many steamies as I can eat. Because I'll tell you, with this money in my pocket, all I could think was the Hamilton Forum steamies. The hot dogs, right? It just didn't get any better than a Hamilton steamy. So anyway, yeah. So I got to see the show, and I was feeling a little rough at the end because I'd almost spent all of this money eating hot dogs, me and my buddy Fat Cam. And we caught the Animals, and I think there's about 12 bands on that time. I hooked up with all these guys I knew from the store, like the older musicians that had seen me in the store, working in the store, and I talked to them, they talked to me when I was in the store. So, I knew people there, and that was my first show, the Animals, the new Animals, and I believe next summer, which would have been maybe 1968, something like maybe we were listening to the new Animals, Sky Pilot, and all of that stuff, Warm Sanford, all that stuff. So, and because I'll tell you, the show that we saw at the Hamilton Forum, was pretty wild, man. That was that was punk, They had the violin player, and I'd never seen anything. Oh yeah, wow, man. And they were just, whoa. Anyway, that's my new Animals, 1968 Hamilton Forum. Okay, my first punk rock show was in 1976 at Duffy's. Okay, a good friend of mine, a whole bunch of friends of mine were in a band called Tangerine. 4-piece band. I knew everyone in the band, and I went down to Duffy's for a Saturday matinee. So on Saturday matinee, it was open stage. Bands were allowed to get up. So anyway, I'm, sitting there, and then the, an announcer comes up, and says, okay, we've got this young band that wants to come up and play a bunch of tunes. They're from West Hill High School, and we hope that they make it, that they make good and everything. I don't know if they said the name or not. I can't remember if they said Teenage Head or not. But anyway, there's Frankie, Gordy, Steve, and Nick. and maybe that other guitar player, I'm not too sure. But anyway, there they are now, Duffy's. And, this is 1976, like right the winter. So I'm catching, it's just a classic, that I was there to see that. So, and their first number was Beat on the Brat. Now, I wasn't really too familiar, with that song, but I knew at the time in 1976, that there was some big changes coming. I didn't know what they were, but I said this prog thing has got to go. With all of these guys, all of these virtuosos, a lot of us can't play like this. So it's got to get back to something. Here it was. Thank you. Yeah, favorite show would happen to be Pink Floyd, 1973 at the Buffalo Odd. That was great because they could use all their fireworks, all the pyro, everything, because it was a cement building. The one they had at the Gardens, they couldn't use a lot of stuff because the Gardens being made out of wood, if anything would go wrong, it would be quite a show. So anyway, and then another show would have to be Pink Floyd at Tiger Cat Stadium. I think that was in 1975 because a friend of mine did the buses. And the buses that he used were not allowed to come into Hamilton. So on this thing, with the show being in Hamilton, he had to get Canada Coach. So, he had a bunch of free tickets. Hey, Jack, come on, see. So, he went on a Canada Coach, and we just drove around for about an hour and a half, picking up people and all of this stuff, and partying on the bus. Oh, it was unbelievable. So when I got off that bus, I'll tell you, man, I was, get out the knee pads. But anyway, so that was that was another favorite show of mine. So that's it. Okay, bands that I've been in. Okay, I started playing in bands roughly in 1966. My first band was The Shadows of Fate. And it got to that point in that band, every hall that we went into and the junior dance, we always ended up halfway through our show, or halfway through the night, running out the back door with our equipment because there was always a big brawl. So Shadows of Fate, anywhere we went, there was always a giant fight. So we changed our name to the Magnetic Sound, and then the next thing we're doing like fashion shows and we're doing a ton of work, for 13, 14-year-old kid. I'm bringing in about $50. But anyway, that was the Magnetic Sound. And then after that, it was a band called Buxton Castle, where we were signed to RCA, and then moved over to Warner, was on the Reprise label, Reprise label, and also the Warner label. That band broke up. I moved over to a band called Ray Meterick. And the funny thing about that is Buxton Castle, when we were getting thrown out the back door, Ray Meterick was coming in through the front door on Warner Brothers. So that was hilarious. We were saying, who's this Ray Meterick guy? And here I end up playing with him. And that lasted till maybe about the mid-'80s. A couple of years, just kind of job in there. Ended up with the Head in 1986. Did a bunch of stuff with them. Had some time off because Frankie came in and they went back to their old band, and from that thing I went into country music. I started playing country music, so at that point I was playing with a band called the Mercy Brothers. Well, it was kind of Larry Mercy, but Mercy Brothers, and they were kind of a Canadian country Juno winners, from the 60s. Of course they had about 12 Junos. So, and I played with them until maybe about the early 90s. I did some Head shows on and off. Wasn't quite still in the Head again. And then I moved down to New York. I was playing with Coyote Shivers. Did Coyote. Came back at the turn of the century, 2000. And then got back with the Head. And then I got sick in 2016. And then, so I just kind of semi-retired from the Head because, I was down for 6 months, man. It was awful, I was kind of wondering, what the hell am I going to do, because I had no money, nothing, anything. So actually I would like to thank the people that all helped me on my GoFund that Lori Yates set up, thank God, thank you, Lori, and thank you people who put money into my GoFund. That really helped me out, thank you. So, and now I'm playing with a band called the Rockets, which is Paul Wheeler and Georgie Fab, and we're kind of an English invasion band. We do all English music, so, and a bit of a, American rock and roll, so, and, it's a bunch of stuff. But anyway, that band is a lot of fun. Having a lot of fun with that band, so that's called the Rockets. So anyway, that's that. Yeah, the craziest thing I've ever seen at a show. Well, it happened to be me. I'm with this band. I'm really. It's just an excuse to get drunk. So here we are, New Year's, and I'm playing someplace out on a number 8 highway, kind of Beamsville. I forget the name of this joint, but anyway, it's New Year's Eve, and the drinks are free. So here I am. The whiskeys are flying. And honestly, I must have, I must have drank at least 20 doubles. Probably through the night, 40. I probably drank a 40. And I can remember on the last song, I fell off my stool. I went backwards and fell off my stool. And what happened was that there was a giant Christmas tree behind me. I fell into the Christmas tree, and it fell over and covered the whole band. So I climb up, I climb out of the Christmas tree, and I just need another drink. I think I need another cocktail. So, I go up to the bar, and I'm ordering 2 more whiskeys, and they're actually giving them to me. I couldn't believe it. Usually any cat would be cut off at that point. And a guy comes up to me, he says, "Hey, bud," he says, "I just won $100. I said, "What?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I went around taking bets you'd be falling off your stool." Yeah, I caught you down at the Alpine about 2 weeks ago, and you fell off your stool there too. So, and at the so that's it. Guy wins bets that I'm going to fall off my stool, and he wins $100. So anyway, and then the Alpine, the 2 weeks before, when I had fallen off my stool, I had a giant floor tom, an 18-inch floor tom, where a tray of beer would actually fit in the tom. So I'm using my floor tom as a table for my beer. So I'm just chugging back. I can remember after the second set, one of the trays that I got up and played frisbee. Threw it, and we're playing country. And there's all like these country bumpkins in the Alpine. That the tray goes banging up against the wall, and drink. Then Tracy bring up another goddamn tray. So here I am drinking the tray, and it fell off my stool that night too. That was 2 weeks prior to that. But so that's the craziest thing I've ever seen at a show. I happen to be in the show. Jesus Christ. Anyway. Now, this question is that I've got here. What is it that I like being a musician? What is it that I don't like being a musician? Okay. Well, what I like being a musician is being on stage, playing music, the band's working all as one. Because what they say, playing in a rock and roll band is a true form of democracy. Because everyone is helping each other, making it into a whole. So anyway, the energy that comes off of that is unbelievable. And what you get back from the audience. I love that. You can't explain it. That's why you do this, is to get that vibe, because it's just like and okay, so and kind of the parties, and you get to meet people and all of that. So I like that part too, But the parts I don't like is the no money. Right? No money. And setting up. I hate setting up gear. Lugging gear, I hate it. Basically, I really can't do it these days because the doctor has told me not to do any heavy lifting. So, that kind of, what do I do? So either I heavy lift and end up in the hospital again, or hopefully maybe have a roadie, because I've got in the Rockets, I have a roadie, that will set up my gear and carry my gear and that stuff. So, thank God for that. So, I don't like the money. I don't like the lugging. And I can't think of anything else, of not to like. Because it's it's a lot of fun. When it boils right down to it, I look upon it. I've been playing out now for I guess 54 years. I started playing out in the end of 1966, and that was kind of neat. See, this is what I like about the music business. I went and joined this band. I've never played with them or anything. I got up there, set up my drums, and did the show with them. And they said, my God, it was like I've been rehearsing. But, I was taught how to listen, taught how to play everything. So, but anyway, that's another great feeling, is showing up to a gig that, showing up with a band that you've never played with, and you pull it off. you pull it off, and everyone, yeah, because at that point you are king. Well, it doesn't last too long until they get to know you. So anyway, that's it. Okay. Okay, my most useless talent. The ability to make money. That's it. This question is my favorite food. You got about an hour? Okay, let's start. I love Lebanese food. I love American style Chinese food. I love that stuff. I love Vietnamese food. I love Mexican food. I'm not big into lamb or, any kind of that stuff. I'm more or less like just a chicken, pork, and, beef. The lamb and all of that exotic stuff, I can't handle that. I love German food, all the schnitzels, and, there's some good places in Hamilton that I like. Yeah, and I imagine, and burgers. I love DQ burgers. For some reason, the Dairy Queen burgers, I really love that. There's some kind of a taste to them. Yeah, so that's about it. So, okay, so those are my favorite foods. So, what I'd like to do is, thank Steve Reniewick for doing this. This is great. I'm really enjoying Steve's company and what we're doing here. And I was a good friend of Steve's uncle, Dave the Kid Reniewick, because there's no more trooper than a guy like this, I'll tell you, man. I've known this guy since the early 70s. And it just didn't get any better than the kid. And he worked for CN for a whole bunch of years, and I can remember playing with the yard master, really intense guy, a guy named Ronnie Horton, guitar player, was a go-to country guy in the late 60s. I asked him if he knew Dave Reniewick, the kid, and he says he's the only guy I'd call in from Hamilton. Because, I could trust Dave. And here's a guy that remembers him. Because this Ronnie Horton was a railway guy, for a long time. Yard master, everything. So, anyway, I'd like to thank Steve. And God bless his uncle Dave, who is not with us at this point, which is kind of sad. He died on a Good Friday, so that's excellent. But anyway, thank you, Steve Reniewick and Dave Reniewick, the kid. Thank you. And being from Hamilton, I would like to thank my favorite Hamilton icon, Mr. Chris Crash. Because I'll tell you, he's the only guy in the city I've seen eye to eye. Thank you, Chris.